Hi everybody, welcome to my next cooking video. I'm going to cook pork loin, and here is what I'm going to do first. I have my 2 pork loins here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to marinate them for a couple of hours first before I start cooking them. So what I need for the marinade is some Dijon mustard. I like the ones with the seeds, that's the best kind. Some garlic. I'm going to just use the canned garlic for the marinade. Balsamic vinegar. Some olive oil, and I got some spices. I'm going to use some rosemary and thyme, and some sage, and then I'm going to marinate that for a couple of hours. Oh, and I'm going to add some soy sauce as well. I'm going to marinate that for a couple of hours, and then I will start cooking it. Okay, so the first step is to put the pork loins in the bowl. I'm just going to open these up. I open them up over my sink. Let's see this. Sorry. I open them up over my sink because that way any of the liquid that's in there will run out into the sink. Okay. There's one. And there's a difference between a pork loin and a pork tenderloin. These are actually pork tenderloins. Pork loins are usually a lot bigger. Let me get this out and I'll show you. So pork loins are usually a lot bigger than this. They're thicker, and then they have a big swath of fat on the top. Pork tenderloins are long and thin, and usually all the fat, most of the fat is taken off. So that's the difference between pork loins and pork tenderloins. I'm just gonna wash my hands and I'll be back. Okay, so the first step is to get my ingredients together. So I'm going to move this out of the way for now while I get my ingredients together. So first I'm going to put some salt and pepper. I'd say that's about 2 teaspoons, a little bit more, about 2 teaspoons of pepper. And same with salt, the same amount. Okay. And I'm going to add some onion powder. It's easier than other onions. Just add a couple of pinches of onion powder just to give it some extra flavor. I'm going to add garlic. And for marinades, I just usually add the canned garlic instead of chopping up garlic. It's just a lot easier to do with marinades. So I have just enough in my little container here. And then I'm going to add in some Dijon mustard. And some olive oil, about 3 tablespoons, and about a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar just to give it some taste. Okay. I'm also going to add in some fresh herbs. I use the ground ones again. I use the ground ones in marinades. It's a lot easier. So some thyme. Some rosemary. And just a tiny bit of cayenne pepper flakes. That's just about it there. So just mix that up. I'm just gonna mix that up with a fork. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this on to the pork tenderloins and let them sit in a container for a couple of hours in the fridge while all this marinade is soaking into the meat. And then I'll be ready to cook it. Okay, so next step. Get my container. This should be good enough. Okay, this is the first one. Just going to use my pastry brush and brush it all over. And you will get your hands dirty, so it's another hand washing thing afterwards. You can put it in a bigger container. I have what I have, and I don't mind the small container because they'll both be together, so they can kind of marinate together, and they'll, you know, it'll just enhance the flavor for both of them if they're together in the same container. So let's brush it all over. This will keep the meat nice and moist while you're cooking it. Okay, so the next one. And you can even add more just to let it sit in the marinade. You can even add more, which I think I'm going to do. I'm going to make another batch, and I'm going to just put it on top just to make sure that it all soaks in. So I'm going to add some more marinade to the bowl, and then I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge for 2 hours. Let's see what it's like in 2 hours, and then I will cook it. Okay, thank you. Just gonna do a quick wash of hands, make some more marinade, and then put it in the fridge. Okay, so while my pork tenderloin is in my fridge, I am also going to make ginger beef, a crispy ginger beef recipe. So what the first step was to call mixing the beef with some cornstarch. Now I don't have cornstarch, flour's just as good, as long as there's something there to kind of give a coating for the beef when you go to cook it. So I've already done that step. Next step is to saute some onions with some oil in a saucepan. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to chop up the onion and saute that. Okay, so I like to use red onions when I'm cooking because they give a lot more flavor. Before I do the onion, first I'm going to show you how to sharpen a knife if you sharpen your own knives. I have these nice J.E. Henkel knives that were given to me. And this one needs to be sharpened, so I just have my sharpening stone, and you just go along with the edge of the knife against the sharpening stone and just pull down and just keep alternating like that. You turn the stone a bit. And if you don't have a knife set like this, you can get a stone like this to sharpen your own knives. You just go a couple of times like that, and then I just rinse it off, wash it a bit, rinse it off. Before I use it to cook my veggies. And now it's nice and sharp. Again, cut the onion in half like that. It makes it easier to peel. Okay, and then I just slice into a nice dice. Just be careful as you're slicing, because sometimes the onions will make your fingers slip, and if you just sharpened your knife, you will get cut. So just be careful. So there's the onions. I'm just going to saute that and until they're nice and opaque. Okay, my recipe also calls for julienne carrots. So I have a carrot that I just peeled, and I'm just going to do a rough julienne. So they should look like little matchsticks. You can buy prepackaged julienne carrots as well. I didn't see any in the store that I was in this morning, so I will just do these myself, and it'll just be a rough julienne. So I'm not that great at julienne thin ones. Just to give you an idea, they should look like little matchsticks when you're done. And they should be even. Even. Okay, so I just cut the carrot in half and work with the flat side down and just make some cuts along the carrot. And then I further cut those down into smaller matchstick size pieces. That's how you do that. Okay, next is 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to add 4 because I like garlic. So how to open the garlic, I like to just crush it with the knife. And then the skin comes off really easily. There. So just do the same with the others. Just crush it with the knife and the skin will come right off. Okay, so then you just chop it up. It calls for minced garlic, so I'm just going to chop it. And then you just keep doing it over and over again. Again, you can crush it with the knife once you've chopped it up a bit to kind of help it get crushed up a bit more. And you just chop it up into little tiny pieces until it's minced garlic. And you can let the knife do the work, just like this. Keep your fingers on it to steady the knife, but you basically just let the knife do all the work. Just keep your finger on it to steady and just chop with the knife. This is where the nice sharp knife comes in handy. So you just do that for each of the cloves of garlic until you have a nice little mince. Here, I'll take out that bad piece. So you have a nice little mince. Okay, so you do that with all of the garlic. Okay, so now that the carrots and the onions have been sauteing for a bit, carrots should be tender, and they're, just about there. So it says add the garlic and 2 tablespoons of crushed ginger, grated ginger, sorry. So what I did is I have some fresh ginger, I just peeled it and I grated it with my grater. So I'm just going to add that in and just let that saute for a bit as well. Mix it in well with the carrots and the onions. smaller spatula. Okay, get that well mixed in. Okay. So now I just lowered the heat down to low, just to simmer. So I'm going to add a lot of the rest of the ingredients. So it calls for 1/4 cup of vinegar. So I'm going to add that in. 1/2 cup of soy sauce. 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. So I got some sesame oil here. I'm just going to take the cap off. Okay, sesame oil. And then 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So mix that in. Oh, it just smells so awesome now. I also added a little pinch of chili flakes in here as well, just to give it a little kick. And it calls for sesame seeds, and I could not find sesame seeds, but I found some caraway seeds, which are, you know, they're still good. They're tasty, so I'll add some of these. And I dropped my bottle and I broke the cap, so that's not fun. It says 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds, but since I'm using caraway seeds, they're not as flavorful as sesame seeds, and I don't have any sesame seeds. I'm just going to add 1, just to give it a little bit of extra flavor and texture, but I'm not overpowering the caraway flavoring. So mix that in. There'll be just enough caraway seeds in there just to coat the beef. I don't want to overpower it with the caraway flavoring. So that is all mixed in together, and it smells awesome. I'm sure it'll taste awesome. Okay, so now I just lower this, put it on low on my other burner, and I'm going to cook the beef. So let that simmer to make the sauce a little bit thicker. And now it's time to cook the beef. So now I'm to fry the beef. And well, I've used a big pot because it's a lot of beef. And the water test says that the skillet is ready to go. So it says to cook the beef in pieces. Just shake off the extra flour and just start cooking. I like to use olive oil when I'm cooking because it has a high smoke point. It takes a long time for it to burn off, just in case you forget about it. And you can cook it on a higher heat and for a longer period of time. You can also add, once I'm done with this batch, if it takes up all the oil, I'm going to add some more oil. So adding regular vegetable oil to a hot pan is not really recommended, but I can do that with the olive oil. So it's cooking in batches. Stir my sauce. I also added some black pepper to my sauce as well. And I have it on medium heat, boiling away to thicken up the sauce. Just getting a plate so to put the beef on. Pan. I'll move my beef over here. Turn it down a bit. You just cook it till they're brown. Just starting to get nice and brown. Just flip them over. And cook them on all the sides until all the sides are a little bit brown and have a nice sear on them. And then you just do another batch. So now I'm going to turn down my sauce a little thicker. Simmer now. And as this cooks, I'm just going to take some of it out, put it on a plate to cool down. And get ready to add some more. Now they don't have to fully cook all the way through because you're going to cook it into the sauce as well. So just a nice sear on all the sides. So you can't see any pink on the outside. Okay, and I'll be back when the beef is done. Okay, so some more beef is cooking. So I've got some done here. So I'm just patting it to dry to get rid of some of the excess oil. And then I'm going to put those in with the teriyaki mixture. I'll be right back. Okay, so I aired in my thing before. I said to cook the beef until it's crispy. So I've got the beef basically almost deep frying in the pot. And the ones that I have finished cooking, I'm going to add to the mixture that I made. So just stir it in. Stir it in, mix it up. Now all the beef that's cooking in the pot, I'm going to make another batch because it can't add all the beef to this mixture because it's not enough mixture for the beef that I have. So I'll make another batch. It's no big deal. I basically just stir this around, keep them cooking till they're cooked through and they're nice and crispy on the outside. Okay, so this batch of beef is almost done. Some of this I'm going to add to that, and then some of it I'll keep and I'll make another batch. So just funny story, I haven't cooked with this much oil in a pot since I was in Kenya in 2014, and I almost set the house on fire. I was cooking some vegetables, deep frying some meat and some vegetables, and I thought, hey, let's try some mushrooms. And like stupid me forgets cooking 101 that mushrooms are full of water. So I throw some mushrooms in the boiling pot of oil, and it just exploded all up over the place. It was just crazy. So, haven't done that since, and this is the first time since then that I've cooked with this much oil in a pot. So I'm hoping that I don't blow up my place. So these are almost done, and when they're done, I'll add some of the pieces to the mixture that I already have. Okay, so there's the finished product, ginger beef with onions and carrots in the mix. I'm going to side that with some nice honey glazed carrots, and I'll work on those later. Still cooking the last bit of the beef, so I'll make another batch of this so that there's an extra batch, and but that's what the finished product will look like. Right there, okay? And I'll be back with this pork tenderloin. Okay, now that I've cooked all the beef, I'm going to do a quick deglaze of this pan. So I'm going to add in some flour, and I'm going to get some beef stock and add that in as well. It's great to make a gravy with drippings of beef that you're cooking. So I'm going to add some beef stock. Oh, that was chicken stock, but that's okay. And you just keep the pan and you just scrape off all the bits at the bottom of the pan, because it is really good flavorful bits. And that's deglazing the pan. Turn it on high. It goes away, so I can scrape off all the pieces. So just scraping up all the pieces, and then I'll get my little whisk. Spot. There's my little whisk, and we'll just whisk it up to make a little bit of gravy. Not for this dish, but I can put this aside and use it for another dish. Add some more chicken stock. I know that was weird the way I poured. Boil, and you just stir it. And add some more flour. I like this stuff. You can just shake it in. It's the Robin Hood Instant. It's great for making gravies and sauces. A little whisk. Still can't find a big enough whisk, but this little one's done pretty good. I made a lot of things with this whisk. Constantly keep stirring. Pick up a little bits at the end. You can see it's getting a little bit thicker. So I made chicken flavored beef gravy. But you use what you got, what you can grab out of the fridge quickly. So now it's thickening. You can tell it's thickening up now. You just keep constantly stirring it. And turn down the heat a bit. You stir it up with high because you want the liquid to be boiling as you're stirring. So this is really nice and thick now. Until it's now turning into gravy. It's not just oil. And it's broken up some of the bottom bits at the bottom of the pan. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. Now it's totally thickened. So now I have a nice gravy. I can put that in the fridge and use it for another meal. I actually have a chicken, so I can cook that chicken for myself tonight for dinner and have some gravy with it. Okay, I'll put that aside. Okay, so here's my second batch of the sauce. I added the rest of the beef. So I'm going to pair this, like I said, with glazed carrots and some steamed rice. So I will work on those later. I'm going to make sure this is cooked, and then I'm going to put it away, and then I'm going to cook the pork loin. Okay, so now it is time to do the pork tenderloin. So I've got my ingredients ready. I got some crushed garlic, some butter, basil, salt, pepper, basil, oregano, and some thyme. So now I'm going to take out the pork loin or tenderloin, sorry, and we can take a look at it. Okay, the first step is to line the baking sheet with aluminum foil. First, turn the oven on to 400. Oh, cancel that. Hit broil. Bake. 400. Okay, so that's cooking. So line the baking sheet with tin foil. This will be good later so that you don't have to scrub the baking sheet. Double layer it just to make sure. And that's that much more easy afterwards. Okay, so that's done. So here is the pork tenderloin. After I left it in to marinate, I left it in for about 4 hours just to make sure it's nice and tasty afterward. Okay, so in a bowl we will combine the garlic, basil, thyme, now it says put each of them 2 tablespoons each. I'm just kind of measuring it because I have 2 pork tenderloins, so I think I want to put a little bit more than what the recipe says. Basil, some salt, pepper, here's my pepper. Okay. I can put a little bit of allspice just to give a little bit more flavor. And oregano. Now what this is going to do, this is going to be my base. It's going to be a dry rub that I put on it, and I put it in the oven. So I'm just going to mix all that up. And then these will go, that'll be rubbed onto the tenderloin when I'm ready to put them in the oven. Okay, so we start off with a skillet with some oil. And we take the tenderloin, and I like to leave the marinade on. And put it in the pan, crisp up on both sides. Both. And I just want to sear those to seal in the juices. Also season the mustard sauce, and that'll keep it moist while it's cooking in the oven. So we'll just sear these for a few minutes on each side, and then we'll put it on our baking sheet. So this is what we want to see when we're cooking it. We want to see it get nice and golden on both sides. And then once these are almost done, then I'll put them on the cookie sheet. I'll put the herbs and spices on top. So just give this a few more minutes on one side, and then I'll be ready to do that. Okay, so now they're nice and brown on either side, as you can see. So I'm going to transfer them to the baking sheet. And then I'm going to put the herbs on top. So you could do this with your hands, which I'm going to do. It's going to be very hot, but I'm going to do it. Just coat them nicely with all the herbs and the garlic. Okay, then into the oven. I put it at 350. I actually put it at 400, but it said 350. I just checked. So 350 in the oven for about 25 minutes or until it is 150 degrees. Okay, so now it's all ready to go in the oven. So it's at 350. I put all the herbs on it with my hands. You can use that. You can use a glove. You can use a fork. Anything you want. I use my hands because I've done it before. So this goes in for 25 minutes at 350 in a foil lined pan. And then I will check on it in 25 minutes and see if it's done. It should be at 150 degrees with a meat thermometer at the thickest part of the meat when done. Okay, so here's the pork loin out of the oven. I just checked it. I'm just checking the temperature. You put the meat thermometer in the thickest part and it should be at 150. It's just at 140 for the smaller one. The bigger one says about the same. So I'm going to give it another 5 minutes in the oven. Okay, while I'm waiting for the pork loin to finish cooking, I have peeled my sweet potatoes. So I'm going to try potatoes two ways. I'm going to mash and I'm going to do a little bit of a bake sweet potato. So I only have 4, so we'll see what I can do with these. Okay, so this is done. The thermometer is at 150, so I'm going to put these aside and let them rest and cool down. I'm going to pair these. I'm going to do a sweet potato mash and a sweet potato bake. I'm going to try two different ways. And I'm also going to make a mushroom gravy that can go on top of this as well. So I've removed the foil very carefully. If you just rip the foil off, you might get some on your baking sheet, but I took it off very carefully. So my baking sheet is perfectly clean. I can just put it back in my cupboard. Okay, so for the potatoes, you need to chop all of them up into nice cubes. So I'm going to work on that. And I'm going to put them in, for now, this pot in anticipation of boiling some to make the mash. I'll put them all in there and then I'll just distribute some for the mash and some for the roasted potatoes. So, let me get the big guns out. I'm going to get my big knife because these are hard to cut. Again, just let the knife do the work. Just hold down on the front and push down on the knife. Let the knife do all the work. Some of those I'm going to cut up smaller because I think they're pretty big chunks. That size is good for mash. Let's put them all here. I'm going to go through them, and I'll take the big chunks out for the baked potatoes, and the smaller ones I'll leave for the mash. Okay, I had more than enough sweet potatoes in those 4 big ones to do both kinds of potatoes. So these ones will go into making baked potatoes, and these ones will go into my mash. I'm going to make both of them with cinnamon and onions. Actually, I won't make the mash with onions because it'll be too hard to mash with the onions in it. But the baked ones will have onions. This one will just be plain with cinnamon and a little bit of garlic. Not too much garlic because I don't want to overpower the cinnamon taste. I want to give a shout out to the Metro at Markham Road and Eglinton for helping me out with the sweet potatoes. They gave me a good deal on them, which was great. And I told them I would mention them in my video. So for the sweet potatoes, I'm just going to put water, enough water in the pot to cover the top of the potatoes. I'm just going to boil them until they are soft. So you just insert a fork. If the fork goes in very easily, they're ready. So I'm just going to boil them until that point, and then I will work on mashing them, and then at that point I'll add the garlic and the cinnamon. So I'm just going to put this on high. Put my lid on. I like to put my lid on slightly askew so that it doesn't boil over when it starts boiling. So now I can go do something else for about 5 minutes. Okay, so for the roasted potatoes, it calls for 2 small red onions. I don't have 2 small red onions, I have 1 large one, so I'm gonna use my 1 large one. It says cut it into big chunks. So that's what I do. Peel it first. So when you cut an onion again, keep your hands like in a claw. Put it on the onion, slice this way, that way it bounces off your knuckles. Since I've learned that trick, I have never done it myself. So I'm not going to dice it. It says big chunks. So I'm going to make this big chunks. This one I'm going to cut into bigger chunks. There we go, so big chunks. Okay, so this step, I've added the potatoes and the onions in a large bowl, mix them together. I'm going to set my oven for 400. This is where the 400 comes in on the oven. And I'm going to add salt and pepper. Drizzle of olive oil. So to make a drizzle, instead of just pouring it in, to make a drizzle, you stick your hand in the little, top there, and then you just go like that, and that drizzles in the olive oil. Just enough to coat them. There we go. Teaspoon of allspice. Get it open. There we go. Teaspoon of allspice. mix that together. Best way to do it is with your hands. So you have to have clean hands all the time. Just mix it in until all the potatoes and onions are coated. Good. Wash my hands again. I was just joking with a Facebook friend. I've washed 4 rounds of dishes and pots and pans today. I ended up finding myself singing to myself that I hate washing dishes and I hate the dishpan hands. So I'm going to try to make a parody about that. So now I'll come over here. And we transfer the potatoes to a baking dish. Spread them all out evenly. Okay, so I'm going to bake those in the oven until the potatoes are nice and soft. There we go. Okay, so I'll be back when the mash and the roasted potatoes are done. Okay, the sweet potatoes that I boiled are ready. I picked up one of the big ones and stuck a fork in it, and it just goes in like quite easily, so they're done. So I'm going to drain it, and then I'm going to mash them. So I just drain it with the lid, get my other oven mitt. Do this till all the liquid's out. Okay, they are drained. So now I'm going to see what is next to do with these. I'm going to mash them down a bit with my masher, and then I'll do the next step. Step. Okay, so I added butter and some cinnamon and some brown sugar. So I'm just going to mash that all together. I don't have a hand mixer, so I just use this. I'm just going to add a little bit of milk, a little bit of cream to counteract because I added a bit too much cinnamon to this. I'm just getting a little bit of cream to make it a little bit creamier. So there they are done. They're brownish in color because I added both brown sugar and cinnamon, so that changed the color to brown. I added a little bit of cream to make them a little bit more creamier. If I had a hand mixer, it would have been a little bit more smoother because these are more fibrous than regular potatoes, so they don't mash as well by hand. But I don't have a hand mixer, so I'm doing what I can to mash them, but I think this is pretty good. So I'm going to package these up, put them in the fridge, and let them rust overnight. Okay, next dish is glazed carrots. So I peeled them. Just going to cut off the tops and the bottoms. Now this one has a little bit of bad part in it. I'll just cut out that part. I don't want to waste the carrot. So I'll just cut out the bad part. And it says to cut them into sticks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them in half. This one's already a half. And then just take one and just cut several sticks off of it. There, just like that. Perfect. So just keep doing that with all the carrots until you have kind of uniform size sticks. They don't have to be matchstick size, but just like that, that's fine. Okay, so cut up all the carrots. I cut up all the carrots, put them in a pan or a pot with just enough water to cover them. So I'm going to let that boil, and when that's boiled, then we will go on to the next steps with the glaze. So the baked sweet potatoes are done. They're nice and crisp, and some have dark bits on it. That's exactly what it says in the recipe. So they are done, so I will package those off and put those in the fridge. The carrots are coming along. They're almost done. Just tried one, and it didn't quite go, the fork didn't quite go through, but it kind of broke the carrot. But I think another 2-3 minutes and they'll be done. Okay, so the carrots are done, so I'm going to set them aside, and I'm going to work on getting the glaze ready. Okay, so now I'm going to put some butter, brown sugar, and a little bit of salt and pepper into a pot. And I just have to whisk it until all the brown sugar has dissolved. And then once that's done, then I will add the carrots. Okay, I've added the carrots. I'm just going to mix them in and get them all covered in the sauce. I'm also going to add a little bit of parsley flakes as well. Get rid of the brown bits. Add some parsley. Okay, so there they are, brown sugar glazed carrots. So I'm just going to put those in the fridge, and the glaze will make it more flavorful tomorrow. Things like this, like, it's good to make ahead, especially stuff like this, and then the glaze can sit in the fridge overnight, and then when you heat them up the next day, it is even more flavorful. So that's it. So that was the glazed carrots, the sweet potatoes 2 ways, pork tenderloin, and the ginger beef. Thank you very much for watching.